evening and welcome to this presentation, this commemoration of the lives of 4 little girls who died in a bombing in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963, on this very day, Sunday, September 15th. This presentation was actually born out of the living room of one of the singers, and the 3 singers together put this presentation together, so we're very happy to listen to what they have. Mrs. Cantrell and I came to this production a little bit later, but we're so happy to be here that we don't know what to do. This will be a continuing thing. I'd like to tell you about our foundation and what you will hear today. This story begins with the day of the bombing, and it ends with the Ministry of Reconciliation that Carolyn Ball McKinstry has begun, and her idea of forgiveness and love conquering hate. And that's what you will hear today. I would like to tell you about a foundation we have begun, though. The Walk With Me Foundation's main mission is to preserve culture through the medium of music. Our global history is the foundation in which we function in everyday life. The musical arts have acted as the thread that links the various patchworks that weave this tapestry of life. This foundation was begun with this production of Walk With Me, and it continued at the University of North Alabama. Even though we're not really under the auspices, we are a part of the University of North Alabama, and they have been a sponsor of ours the entire time. With lecture recitals done by the faculty members, we've not only had this Walk With Me, but we had a lecture recital on Martin Luther King's speech. We've had a lecture recital on Les Mis, the musical that many of you saw this summer. Mrs. Gifford gave a lecture recital on the history that within Les Mis. That was very, very impressive and important. And that will be our goal within this foundation. Here are some of the goals that we wish to achieve. Local, regional, and national outreach through the emergence of historical and musical scholars. Educational programs to primary and secondary schools. A multicultural scholarship foundation for students with socioeconomic hardships. We hope to build these funds through charitable tax-deductible contributions to the foundation, as well as compensations received from various performances. Research of new historical documents and musical manuscripts. Fostering and mentorship of young musical scholars through our diversity ensemble. And the furthering of various cultural backgrounds through the vehicle of music. History and music are intertwined as the many threads that make up a rope. As individuals, they can function alone. However, together they can reshape a community and bridge gaps that extend far beyond race, ethnicity, poverty, or religion. I hope that you will join us in supporting this foundation in any way that you see fit to bring success to an organization that has the power to reshape the face of our community. And all of you that are sitting here with us today have begun the support of this foundation as you are here to be a part of our presentation Walk With Me. Join us now as we commemorate the lives of these 4 young ladies. Thank you. on Sunday morning, September 15th, 1963, and looked out my bedroom window. The sky was slightly overcast, but the sun was trying hard to shine through the clouds. It was a warm, beautiful September day in Birmingham, Alabama, an ordinary busy Sunday morning at the mall home. I laid out my white Sunday dress. I had starched and ironed it before I went to bed the night before. At age 14, I didn't own a lot of clothes because there were 6 children to clothe in our household. But I had several special church dresses and 1 pair of black patent leather shoes I saved just for Sunday church. Today was Youth Sunday at 16th Street Baptist Church. On the 4th Sunday of each month, Reverend John H. Cross asked the church's youth to lead the service, teach the Sunday school classes, and take over jobs the adult members usually did. It proved an exciting day for us each month. The boys wore dark pants and white shirts on those Sundays, and the girls wore their prettiest white dresses. Several responsibilities awaited me at home before I could leave for church. One of them included combing my younger sister's hair. Little Agnes had a lot of it, always uncooperative to the comb, and she had a sensitive, tender scalp. Mama herself was never good at fixing hair, so she gave me the assignment of combing her hair too. In the mornings before I left for school, Agnes usually held still and allowed me to comb and braid her hair. Even though I tried to be gentle, it usually hurt her to get the kinks out. Sometimes she'd cry. That Sunday she refused to hold still. Restless and not wanting to be bothered, she kept pushing me away. "Please, Agnes," I begged, "be still. I've got to be on time for Sunday school. It's Youth Sunday. I have my reports to do and I've got to get there and count the money. I need to be on time this morning." But my sister refused to cooperate. "Mama," I called in desperation, "Agnes won't let me comb her hair and I'm going to be late for Sunday school. I need to go." "Well, just leave her here this morning," Mama told me. "You go on to church. Agnes can stay home with me." Thank goodness, I thought. The last thing I wanted was to be late and upset Mrs. Shorter, the church secretary. She would have been working in the office and answering the phone all that morning. Mrs. Shorter and I worked side by side in the church office on Sundays. "Come on, Wendell, Kirk," I called to my younger brothers. "We've got to go." classroom. "See you later," I called and started up the stairs. I hurried because the reports had to be summarized by 10:30. When the classes reconvened and the superintendent would stand up and announce, "Sister Maul will read today's Sunday school summary for us." As I ran up the stairs, I heard the phone ringing in the church office. Out of breath, I rushed inside, picked up the heavy black receiver and put it to my ear. I opened my mouth to say hello, but before I could say anything, a male voice said simply, "3 minutes." Then he hung up. The worship service was about to begin at 16th Street Baptist Church on Sunday morning, September 15th, 1963. The clock was ticking. I knew I had only a few minutes left to collect the rest of the reports and write the Sunday school summary. I was looking forward to Reverend Cross's sermon that morning. He had posted the title on the board outside the church, "A Love That Forgives." The sermon was to be based on Luke 23:34, the words Christ spoke from the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." As I quickly made my way into the sanctuary, I glanced at the large antique clock that hung on the church wall. The time was 10:22 a.m. I walked into the sanctuary toward the stained glass window of Jesus, his kind face and loving eyes focused on me, and that's when I heard it. Boom! The blast shook the building. Thunder, I thought. Maybe a lightning strike. The sound was muffled, not loud and earth-shattering like the bombs I had heard so many times when Klan members dynamited black homes and businesses throughout the city. Glass cracked and crashed to the floor, but I barely noticed. I just wanted to get out of there. "What is happening?" I asked myself. Someone shouted, "Hit the floor!" I dropped. Sprawled out flat in the aisle on the sanctuary floor, I still held the Sunday school reports in my hands. Seconds passed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I heard no more sounds. No breaking glass, no movement, no voices. Just silence. Dead silence. More seconds passed. 6, 7, 8, 9. Fear enveloped me. What is happening? For at least 10 full seconds, no one moved. Nothing happened. Then I heard and felt on the floor beneath me a stampede of feet, moving, running, scurrying to escape the building. Jumping up from the floor, I ran to the nearby exit and looked outside. What is going on? Police cars were everywhere. How could they get here so quickly? The church was already surrounded, and police were putting up barricades on the streets around the building. Chaos ruled. Several church members stood outside with stunned expressions. Heads were cut and bleeding. Loved ones wiped their blood-wet faces. Mrs. Demand ran outside, her lower leg gashed by flying glass and her shoe filled with blood. Parents were frantically searching for their children. Now I knew for sure it was a bomb. I ran out the door looking for my 2 brothers. How could there be a bomb here, in my church? I could hardly comprehend such a thought. I had heard bombs go off in my neighborhood, but it seemed unfathomable that it could happen in this safe haven. I looked up at the stained glass Jesus window that stood above me and searched for the face that had always brought me such comfort, security, and peace. The window was intact, its glass unbroken, except for the face of Jesus. The bomb had cleanly blown away his face. Nothing else, just his face. The murdered girls' families began making funeral preparations for their young daughters first thing that Monday morning. 16th Street Baptist Church gave each dead girl's family some funds to bury their daughter. Carol's family held her funeral on Tuesday, September 17, 1963, at St. John AME Church, separate from the service for the other girls. By the time Carol's mother found out about the joint service, she had already made the funeral arrangements for Carol. She also felt that this was personal. She had lost her daughter, and she wanted to grieve in a less public way. The next day, Wednesday, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the eulogy for Addie, Denise, and Cynthia at a joint funeral. The service was held at nearby 6th Avenue Baptist Church, since our church was closed for repairs. More than 8,000 mourners, including 800 clergy of both races, attended the service. The old church seated only about 1,000 people, so most of the crowd stood outside facing the front door. No city officials, however, braved the crowds to come. I didn't attend the funeral either. I just couldn't face the row of small coffins. It was sometimes later that I heard Dr. King's speech. This afternoon, we gather in the quiet of the sanctuary to pay our last tribute of respect to these beautiful children of God. They entered the stage of history just a few years ago, and in the brief years that they were privileged to act on this mortal stage, they played their parts exceedingly well. Now the curtain falls. They move through the exit. The drama of their earthly life comes to a close. They are now committed back to that eternity from which they came. These children, unoffending, innocent, and beautiful, were the victims of one of the most vicious and tragic crimes ever perpetrated against humanity. And yet they died nobly. They are the martyred heroines of a holy crusade for freedom and human dignity. Dr. King's funeral message served as a sobering call for justice, but woven throughout was his trademark ray of hope. And so, my friends, they did not die in vain. God still has a way of wringing good out of evil. And history has proven over and over again that unmerited suffering is redemptive. The innocent blood of these little girls may well serve as a redemptive force that will bring new light to this dark city. The Holy Scripture says, "A little child shall lead them." The death of these little children may lead our whole Southland from the low road of man's inhumanity to the high road of peace and brotherhood. These tragic deaths may lead our nation to substitute an aristocracy of character for an aristocracy of color. The spilled blood of these innocent girls may cause the whole citizenry of Birmingham to transform the negative extremes of a dark past into the positive extremes of a bright future. Indeed, this tragic event may cause the white South to come to terms with its conscience. Dr. King was right, but that redemptive work wouldn't start happening right away. In the time immediately after the church bombing, no one spoke of the tragedy or the girls who died. Not the afternoon of the bombing, not that night, not the next day or the next month or the next year. After the funerals, no one mentioned again the 4 dead girls, my friends. Not my teachers, not my parents, not my pastor, not my Sunday school teachers, not my church members, not my friends. No one. It was like the word cancer. No one wanted to say it out loud or acknowledge it. And with the church's restroom death chamber sealed off and walled up, offering no visible reminder of the bombing, it was almost as if it had never happened. whites all over Alabama and the nation seemed to think that the civil rights movement was just about sitting next to black people in classrooms or using the same toilets and public facilities. Blacks, however, saw this as a bigger issue. They wanted equal access and opportunities to do whatever their talents and resources would allow them to do. It is one scenario to be unable to attend a school for lack of academic standing or financial resources. It is quite another matter to have academic standing and financial resources, yet have the door locked and bolted because of one's ethnicity. Blacks wanted life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, whatever that meant to each person individually. But in a nutshell, we wanted freedom. Some blacks were willing to fight for that freedom, and Fred Lee Shuttlesworth was one of them. He and Martin Luther King Jr. had together founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, a national civil rights group organized after the Montgomery bus boycott. Now, several years later, he felt it was time to contact Dr. King in Atlanta to help him. To test the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education ruling to integrate the public schools, Shuttlesworth had driven to Birmingham's Phillip High School with his 2 daughters in the car. He planned to enroll them in the all-white school, but white mobs were waiting for him. When he stepped out of his car, white men jumped him. On the evening news, I saw the men hitting and beating and kicking Reverend Shuttlesworth. At that time, I remember thinking, surely he knew a white mob was waiting for him at the entrance of Phillips High School that day, but he still drove to the school and got out of his car. Was he afraid of what might happen? Certainly he knew the mob might kill him and his daughters. How in the world did he prepare his mind and heart for that confrontation? What did he tell his daughters might happen? How did he prepare them to possibly meet their deaths? During those violent years, the Klan bombed Shuttlesworth's house twice and his church once. Very early one Christmas morning, as he and his wife lay in bed asleep, an explosion woke him. He opened his eyes, and all he could see was the sky above him. The bomb had blown away the roof of his house and the walls of his bedroom. He figured this close escape from death was God's way of telling him, Shuttlesworth, I am with you for the duration of this. Dr. King accepted Shuttlesworth's invitation to come to Birmingham, a hotbed of racial violence, the city Dr. King called the most segregated city in America. Together they organized and planned for peaceful protests. Dr. King made it clear that any protester confronted with violence by police or the Klan was to respond with non-violence. When Bull Connor, Birmingham's Commissioner of Public Safety, heard about the upcoming protest, he obtained a court order forbidding the marches. That meant that if black people marched down the streets of Birmingham, they would be arrested. On Good Friday, April 12, 1963, Dr. King himself was arrested and locked up in the Birmingham jail. Things in Birmingham certainly heated up when Dr. King arrived. I was 15 years old and right in the center of it all.
See
University of Alabama's doorway, and President Kennedy spoke on television to the nation about civil rights, a member of the Klan shot and killed black civil rights leader Medgar Evers, the field secretary for the NAACP. Evers had attracted national attention back in the early 1960s when he had led a store boycott in Jackson, Mississippi, and when he helped black student James Meredith enter the all-white University of Mississippi in 1962. As Evers pulled into the driveway of his home in Jackson, Mississippi, white supremacist and Klan member Byron De La Beckwith was hiding, waiting for Evers to step out of his car. Then, with Evers' wife and young children watching, De La Beckwith shot him in the back. Evers died that night in his driveway. When I heard about the assassination that evening on the television news, I worried about my own father driving home from work. Will someone shoot Daddy in the back and leave him to die in our driveway? I wondered. But I didn't talk to anyone about my fears. I kept them bottled inside, hidden away from my parents and my friends. Even at that young age, I knew I couldn't trust the legal system to bring about justice. Byron De La Beckwith was arrested, tried, and acquitted by an all-white jury. It was the verdict we'd expected. He went free for the next 31 years. That incident set something off inside me. It seemed even more horrific than the other racially motivated murders that had happened recently throughout the South. I was starting to grasp how little value black people had in my country, and I knew it wasn't right. We aren't considered real people who have feelings and dreams and ambitions. People who want the best for their children, I railed to myself. Is anybody going to stand up and say, this is wrong? We're going to bring justice to this situation. When 1964 dawned, I wondered, will the new year bring relief from bombings and some much-needed peace to my city? Will Kennedy's wish of national desegregation ever come true now that he's dead? The bombings and killings didn't stop after the calendar page turned. Birmingham's nickname still fit. Not much had changed in Bombingham. With all the mining operations around the area, dynamite was easy to come by and hard to trace. And so was hatred. Every black family in my neighborhood knew the familiar sound of a bomb exploding. On any given day or night, we'd be in the house or sitting on the front porch and hear the distinctive boom. In an instant, everything would grow still and quiet. We would look at one another and wait for the phone to ring. Since 1964 came to Birmingham as usual, turmoil and questions about John F. Kennedy's killer kept the nation in a state of unrest. I was still reeling from the assassination of my president and the deaths of my 4 friends. I felt miserable and depressed. I couldn't sleep. I thought a lot about death and dying. The cloud still followed me everywhere I went. At 3 o'clock one morning in April 1964, we heard an unmistakable boom. The bomb's bright light lit up the sky above our street, and for a few seconds, night became day. The force of the blast knocked my brothers Wendell and Kirk out of their top bunk beds with a loud thud. I was asleep in my room and shot up in bed when I heard the shattering glass. What in the world, I thought? Almost immediately, I heard Mrs. Crowell screaming. She was trying to wake up her family and get them out of the house in case another bomb exploded. I can't believe it's happening again. I looked out the hole where my now shadowed bedroom window had been, and I saw smoke coming from the house across the street. Kirk, Wendell, and I had now experienced 2 bombings, 2 close calls in our lives. After the church bombing in September 1963, Kirk stopped speaking, except when he felt it absolutely necessary. The next April, after he and Wendell had been thrown from their beds, Kirk became even more withdrawn. What was going through his young mind? We never discussed it. When Birmingham's Phillips High School finally integrated in 1963, my brother Kirk enrolled as one of the school's first black students. Although he never explicitly talked about it, I imagine this must have been a difficult experience for him, especially with his quiet nature. He was smart in math, but came home with a C on his report card in math that year, so my mother went to school and asked the teacher about it. She was told that Kirk had sat in the wrong seat and was given the wrong grade by mistake. That experience seemed to diminish his faith in people, and he became even more quiet and withdrawn after that. After school, Kirk worked part-time at Birmingham's Greyhound bus station. "I've never seen a person so quiet," his employer once told my mother. "He just works. He never says a thing." Kirk eventually earned an MBA from Auburn University, became a seasoned chess player, a vegetarian, and a marathon runner. He never married. He never fathered children. A devout Christian, he tried his best to follow God's teachings all his life. My inclination is that he forgave the people who had wronged him, but I don't know for sure. We never discussed it. My silent little brother Kirk died in November 2000. On June 5th, 1968, just 62 days after Dr. King's murder, Robert F. Kennedy was shot in Los Angeles. He died 26 hours later. I could hardly believe the tragic news. How many more people must die, I asked myself. In 1967, at the invitation of Dr. Marion Wright Edelman, Bobby Kennedy had visited the poor shanty towns in the Mississippi Delta and saw personally the plight of the poor in that area. Kennedy visited one poor family with many children and no heat. Trying to make conversation with a small boy, Kennedy asked him, "What did you have for lunch today?" "Haven't had lunch," the boy replied. Kennedy looked at his watch. "It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you haven't had lunch yet?" "No," the boy said. "Sometimes we eat just one time a day." After that visit, Kennedy returned to the White House determined to change conditions in the Mississippi Delta and other impoverished parts of the South. Now he, too, was dead. Within the span of a decade, I had watched my beloved grandmother die in the basement of Princeton Hospital. I had survived 2 bombings. I had seen 4 friends murdered, and I had lost 3 compassionate leaders to assassins' bullets: John F. Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert F. Kennedy. And I had not yet turned 21 years old. As I raised my 3 children, I tried to teach them to give the gift of forgiveness to those who hurt them. I told them my story, the details of the church bombing and the murder of my friends. I checked out library books and read them the historical accounts of the bombing, the civil rights marches, and Dr. King's work. I wanted them to be conscious that we live in a fallen world. I tried to prepare them for possible racial injustices and hate-filled people. I wanted them to understand what it means to make the choice to forgive others who might hurt them. Sometimes people ask me if the price of forgiveness is worth it. But God has rewarded me beyond my expectations for choosing to forgive. He has filled my heart with an overflowing love for people, black, white, whatever their color or culture. God took away the bitterness that, like an unattended garden weed, might have grown in my heart over the years and choked out the joy and purpose in my life. He has given me a ministry of love and reconciliation that wouldn't have been possible if bitterness had remained rooted in me. God has used my story of pain and suffering as a witness to how love can overcome hate, how forgiveness can overcome bitterness, and how joy can overcome pain.
In him are blessed. All the things are done by his will. He spoke to the sea, and the seas to still. Now ain't that a witness for my Lord? Ain't that a witness for my Lord? Ain't that a witness for my Lord? My soul is a witness for my Lord. Now there was a man of the Pharisees. His name is Nicodemus, and he didn't believe. The same came to Christ by night, wanted to come out of human sight. Nicodemus was a man desired to know how a man can be born when he is old. Christ told Nicodemus as a friend, man, you must be born again. Said, Father, not man, if you want to be wise, repent, believe, and be baptized. Then you'll be a witness for my Lord. You'll be a witness for my Lord. You'll be a witness for my Lord. So is a witness for my Lord. Read about Samson from his birth, strongest man that ever lived on earth. Way back yonder in the ancient times, he killed 10,000 of the Philistines. Then old Samson went wandering about. Samson's strength was never found out until his wife said upon his knees, "The tip on your strength lies in you." Now Samson's wife, she talked so bad. Samson said, "Put on my hair, shave my head just as clean as your man, and strength will come like a natural man." Oh, Samson was a witness for my Lord. Samson was a witness for my Lord. Samson was a witness for my Lord. Saul is a witness for my Lord. There's another witness. See, there's another witness. There's another witness. My soul is a witness for my Lord. My soul is a witness for my Lord.
As believers in Jesus Christ, our responsibility is to teach God's love and forgiveness to a world where injustice and pain often rule. We must show the way of love, love for God and love for our neighbors. We as a people can no longer be silent. We must speak out in love and speak out against those things that hurt others. For many years, we have seen the effects of hate on our world. Now it is time to prove what love will do. One day at a time, one individual at a time, and one act of kindness at a time, we can heal the world. We must stop watching and begin healing.
Is not the soul